Welcome, everyone. This is Dennis Wells. I'm glad to have Bill Vossos with me. He's with BVG Realty and looking forward to an exciting show here today, talking all things real estate. Bill, tell me a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into the business?
Hey Dennis, good morning. Interesting story. I've always been more blue collar. Growing up, worked on cars, went to school for auto diesel mechanics, worked at the mill. When I worked at U.S. Steel, they offered some classes, right? Computer classes, scuba diving, golf, all types of stuff, including real estate classes. And real estate was always something that just kind of piqued my interest, right? So I bought a multifamily property before I got my real estate license, right? I started, kind of looking for a house, and then I came across a 4 unit in Maryville, and I ran the numbers, and it barely cash flowed, but that was with me living in it, right? So kind of ran the numbers. I had some money saved up, and I jumped into that, right? That was my first property purchase. Got married shortly after that, and we moved into that and lived in it for about 5 years. I did some creative financing with the seller, and we owned that property for a little over 20 years. I disposed of it, I don't know, about 5 years ago, right around COVID, right? Which was the most inopportune time to sell it because my intent was to do a 1031 exchange, and I mean, values just skyrocketed like right after I sold it, I probably cut myself short quite a bit of money. And the reason I'm kind of saying this is that, timing the market, right? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. Um, but yeah, I cut myself short some profits for sure. But hey, it is what it is. Nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, right? I mean, I remember I've been selling real estate for 26 years now, right? So that's kind of to kind of go around circle here. When Shortly after I got that property, then I started taking the real estate classes. I think it was in I don't know, 99 or something like that. I bought the building in 98. And I figured, gosh, if I could do it, and I saw the benefit of having somebody else pay your mortgage, maybe I can start helping other people see that. So like the first probably 10 years of my real estate career, I started part-time in 2001, even though I got licensed in the late 90s. I just left it in referral status, didn't do anything with it. I was working at the mill, had a pretty good job. I knew it wasn't going to be my forever job. I didn't like punching a clock. It's just not my style. But the biggest jump for me was like, going from blue collar to, we'll call it white collar, even though I'm wearing a black collar today, right?
Me too.
Yeah, right. But I've always been hands on, I feel like, you have to be a chameleon in every business, right? Pretty much, and try to, um, you know, work with people from different backgrounds, and because I've got such a vast background of being getting my hands dirty and also working on this side of the desk as well. I think it's given me that's one of the things that's giving me, I think, a little bit of a leg up on against my competition, right? Um, and look, there's a couple thousand real estate agents in our MLS, so it's not easy to stand out. So how do you do it? You have to make sure that you're treating your customers properly, that you're communicating with them, and you don't leave them hanging. I mean, if someone calls you and they have a question for you, I'm not the type of person that's going to wait 2 3 days to respond. I'm going to try within minutes. If I didn't answer your call, it's probably because I was servicing somebody else at that time, right? Yeah, so I started in 2001. I think my first year I sold like 10 houses, maybe something like that, part time. Second year I did a little bit better. I started at Prudential Partners Real Estate, which is in existence anymore. Had excellent training there, really. I mean, they really taught me how to write contracts and how to communicate with people. A lot of the stuff that I was kind of already doing, other than the contract aspect of it, of course. Um, and then I joined a team shortly after that. I was with Prudential for a few years. Jumped over to Century 21 on a team. Gained a ton of experience. I don't think the team concept is for everybody. You kind of lose your identity a little bit. But I did really well. I mean, it was some of my best years in real estate as far as my production. I quit the mill in 2003. I had 8 years of service. I got vested, so to speak, in a pension. I took a buyout, like 16 grand, like big money, But hey, I was kind of smart about it. I took that money and I put it into an investment account, and it's worth, a pretty fair amount greater than that today. But anyway, that's a whole different podcast,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, no, no, I love it. There's a lot to unpack
Oh
there.
man, I mean, I didn't even.
Yeah,
It's so funny because when we were talking about like what we were going to talk about, and I'm like, man, I don't know. I get on camera, I don't know what to say, and but sometimes things just start rolling, right?
no, no, that's great. I mean, because
You
one
might
of the
have to reel
things
me in at
that,
some point.
yeah, one of the things I'd love to touch on is that blue collar perspective to the
Yeah,
real estate. Because
yeah, yeah.
I've done a lot of, I've baled hay. I've done, those kinds of things. My father-in-law was an iron worker, and so,
Okay.
there's a lot of, you just do the work, right?
Yeah,
And none of those experiences have ever been wasted. They're
yeah.
always, it's like, you know, because I mean, obviously, I'm not baling hay anymore. You're not in the mill anymore.
No, no,
Thank
for
God for
sure.
both those things, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But
no, for sure.
that we can carry into our practices, you know hey, we go the extra mile.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to go back to that whole, look, everybody's got their own personality, right? But the people that I feel like the people that are able to be flexible with their personality, right? And I'm not saying be fake by any means, right? But you might change your language or how you express yourself depending on who you speak with, right? I mean, if I've got a 25-year-old client versus a 75-year-old client, I'm probably going to speak to them a little bit differently,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I mean, you're
And
going to treat them the same. You're going to treat them the same. Maybe the 75-year-old you might take a little bit more care with, as far as just making sure, like, I mean, so they don't
yeah,
fall or whatever it
yeah,
is. Make sure
yeah.
they're not tripping on something. Where the 25-year-old, you might, they might be helping me, making sure
Yeah,
that I'm
yeah,
not falling.
exactly. Or you text one person, you have to call the other person, kind of a
Yeah,
thing. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
just
Oh,
that.
yeah, 100%. Right. Yeah, you just base it off of how everybody's and I'm glad you mentioned that. Right. That's a great point because I kind of let the client kind of take the lead as far as like if they start the communication by texting, I'm gonna follow that. Right. And there's some people that they don't want a text, they don't want a phone call, they only want email. Um, I've subscribed to a couple of different lead services, right? And some of them come across and are like text only, email only. Well, you need to make sure that you follow that because if they said, hey, I don't want you to text me or I don't want you to email me, and here you are just constantly emailing me, you end up on a spam list and it kind of ruins your reputation a little bit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and that's just that's part of the you know each individual client is an individual, and they have
yeah,
their own
exactly.
preferences and all of that, and and that's one of the things that makes you a great agent is that you're mindful of, hey, how do people want to be communicated with? It's kind of like a love
Sure.
language,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, yeah,
I don't people always ask me, well, can I send you a fax? It's like, no, you can't
yeah.
send me a fax.
No, I know. I mean, I clam up when someone says that because I'm like, man. I mean, that technology's been gone for a minute.
Yeah, it's like
I'm,
you
I'm
can't fax from where I live. Where do you live? The 21st century.
yeah, 2026. Sorry, you know. So it's funny that though that fax is probably still like the most secure type of communication as far as
Yeah,
like for the documents. Um,
yeah,
we're living in a digital world, obviously. So I'm going to say that greater than 90% of my transactions are all done electronically. Uh, it can be similar to this, right, where I'm having a conversation with them, either
hmm
through a Zoom call or Google Chat or whatever it is, or I'm on the phone with them explaining a listing agreement or explaining a purchase agreement. But it's all sent through the cloud, right? Everything
yeah,
goes sent email and
yeah,
click, 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 and so it's much different than how it was when I first started. And speaking of fax, I used to have an Ejix number. It was a little, I had a pager,
Yeah.
And that I mean, gosh, I've been selling real estate. Again, it's been 26 years, right? I mean, I think this is my 26th year, 25th or 26th. Anyway, I kind of lost track, um, but I would get a text message, and then when they got really technologically savvy, that Egypt number would actually convert that fax into a PDF. And I thought that was, man, I was like, this is incredible, right? This
Yeah. Yeah.
technology is absolutely amazing. And again, it was a huge time saver, though, right? And I was, as long as I kept that number, I could receive faxes and send
Yeah.
faxes from that
Yeah.
number, right? That's the bottom line. But yeah, very few people are still using faxes. Um, but there are some medical professions still tend to fax back and forth. It's kind of funny how things have changed. And I know you've been in the loan industry for quite a while as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. I've been in 16 years. So
Sure. Yeah. So you've seen a lot of the changes. I mean, well, 16 years, man. That was pretty bad timing, wasn't it?
yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I tell people that, my interest into my on ramp into the mortgage space was, came from the wrong side of a closing table in the middle of the worst financial and real estate
oh
crisis of a generation.
yeah,
And yeah, I was very, just didn't know a whole lot about anything and not a whole lot of communication. It was a terrible experience, and which you can only imagine. I brought, took 5 grand off a credit card to get out of my house,
yeah, yeah,
and but you know, all things work for a reason, and that brought me into the space and gave me an opportunity to say, okay, I don't want other people to experience what I experienced. So, how can I create a process and a system where, we're getting, um, we're getting uh, the personal experience that people want, the education that people need, and all of those kinds of things. But at the same time, making sure everything behind the scenes goes smooth. So,
for sure. And that's really hitting it right there, right? Is making sure that
yeah,
everything as possible, and
yeah,
and the
yeah,
communication. You need the communication, and you also have to have everybody working on the same page. So if you've got a client, a buyer, right? Because you're funding it, you're lending the money for them. If they're not responding to, hey, I need such and such document to clear underwriting, and we've got delays, and we've got obviously there's deadlines, right? There's certain dates that we need to hit based on the purchase agreement. It's not always easy to just say, oh, we'll just throw an extension in place. Everybody's kind of scheduled their life, around a move. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
right, like
yeah,
contacting movers and setting things up, and sometimes you have multiple transactions. I mean, that I think the craziest transaction that I had was a three-part, right? So it was a buyer, seller, and buyer. So they were selling, buying, and those clients were mine that were selling, and then they were buying as well, right? So
okay,
I had to coordinate three transactions going, and there was contingencies involved. It was a contingent on sale transaction. Um, it went flawless, right? I mean, I couldn't have. I had great partners on the financing side. Everybody, and I wasn't in control. They weren't all my buyers. I only had one, right? I
right, right.
had two buyers. One was cash and one was financing, right? And I wasn't concerned with my buyers. I was more concerned with my seller who became my buyer, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So yeah, so there were some minor, no hiccups, right? Like I said, the whole thing went like as flawless as possible, and because of that, I've gotten a lot of repeat business from these people.
yeah,
I ended up
yeah.
selling the one buyer ended up referred his parents to me. The other one referred a stepson and a brother to me. So it's just that's how this industry works, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah,
all it's
maybe.
all about because just like they'll rant and rave about how well you did, and they'll tell a few of their friends, but man, if I screwed that up, they're going to tell everybody they know.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
absolutely, absolutely.
They're going to tell everybody.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, so I mean it's a challenging business, but at the same time it can be rewarding, and it's not necessarily the financial reward, really. I mean, it's the smiles on people's faces when they're sitting at the closing table and they're moving into their dream house, or they're able to to move away from something that they whether it's like an estate situation or a number of things. I mean, even I've gone to closings where not under the best circumstances, either through a death or through a divorce,
Hmm.
and still see people smiling at the closing table because they achieved what they needed to achieve, right? And
Right,
and
right.
it's a burden that's gone,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and one of the things you talked about was not time in the market, but time in. And
Yeah,
I definitely think that, if the time is right to buy or to sell, the time is right, But
sure.
one of the things I know that we've talked about a little bit is, with the market and affordability, what are some things that you're seeing, especially buyers maybe need today that maybe were not quite as important in the past?
Yeah, so gosh, interest rates are killing everybody. That's really the bottom line, right? I mean, 2, 3 years ago, when we were 2.5 to 3.5% interest rates, and everybody was just like, man, this is almost like free money, really. I mean,
It was, yeah.
it really was. Yeah, it really was. And now, you take that same mortgage amount and multiply it times three, two anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a little bit of a shock. It's a little bit of shock where that $100,000 mortgage, hypothetically, right, just for a nice easy round number, was costing you $400 a month, and now it's 650, $700 a month. Now multiply that times three because the average sales price is closer to 300.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you start adding that up, and you're like, man, 2,100 bucks, and we're not talking about taxes and insurance, and hopefully you don't have PMI on top of it.
Mhm.
It's a tough market, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a tough market for buyers, especially. Um, and I think mentalities have changed as well. As far as when we bought, yeah, I was fortunate enough that my parents instilled savings, like me saving money, um, into me from a very very young age. I mean, I had a bank account, since I was a baby, and so and when I started working as a mechanic, I was making decent money. I was still living at home, and I was pocketing everything I could, just sock it away, sock it away, sock it away. And next thing you know, you got 20 grand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
20,000 today, it's still a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money compared to what it was in 1990 something.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I was like, man, I'm rich. Of course, you're not rich with 20 grand, but that's how you felt as a 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid, having that kind of money. But so that was one thing that like I said, that my parents instilled in me. And $20,000 in 2000 something, right? Or late 90s, you could buy something pretty decent. I mean, $150,000 was a decent amount of money for a first time home buyer's purchase, right? And when we started looking, we my wife and I, we weren't married at the time. We just kind of started looking at houses because we knew we were getting married, and I was kind of smart about making sure that one income was going to cover the note, right? I mean, you don't know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. There's a
Right.
layoff. There's that. I'm still working at the mill. There's been layoffs in the past. My dad was a mill worker, so he got laid off in the '80s. So I've seen it throughout my
Yeah.
life that
Yeah.
there's no such thing as a guarantee. So rather than spend the 250 that we were actually qualified for, 240 or whatever it was, I was looking in the 140 range. Well, then of course I bought the 4 unit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But like I said, so then I got my real estate license. Started looking again after about 5 years being in that townhouse. We figured, probably time to start a family, and so we found a house, and I did the same concept, based it off of one income. Looked at what was in our price range. Found a house in Lakes at Four Seasons. I still own it. Yeah, I still own that house. We've had it for 20. Gosh, we bought it in 2003, so 23 years, right?
Nice.
And it's a great little house, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
lived there for a while. Ended up leasing it out, and the tenant moved out last October. Did a full gut remodel on it, and I'm going to be selling it do a 1031 exchange. That's probably another podcast to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah,
You know that it's a great program. And I don't know. I feel like when I sold my 4 unit, it was similar. Like I see some similarities in the market, which I thought was going to be different. When COVID hit, I expected the market to just totally take a dump.
yeah, yeah,
Right. I mean, I think most people did,
yeah.
and sure enough, it had the exact opposite effect, right?
Right,
The
right.
exact opposite effect. I mean, things just went crazy, and here we are talking about what the average sales price was 20 years ago versus what it is today, um, and how much housing has increased in value, perceived value, however you want to look at it, in such a short amount of time, right? I mean, the last 6 years, say for example, it's just been gangbusters as
Yeah,
far as home
yeah,
values. So,
yeah,
I mean, as far as like giving advice, other than I know we're going to talk about like some down payment assistance and things like that, but really, people have to kind of look at your first house is not necessarily going to be the house that you're going to be in the rest of your life,
right,
right?
right.
So it takes it takes some thought behind that. So you might live in an area that you're like, well, I don't know if I necessarily want to send my kids to XYZ schools,
Right, right.
right? Um, but know that if as someone who's just starting out, it is a start, right?
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a leg up, right?
Exactly.
And um, the whole mortgage business, you're probably not going to pay it down a huge amount, but you should have some appreciation. If we're back to average of 3% per year, right? Three and a half, whatever that is. Um, you stay there for 5 years, and maybe you keep it as a rental, or maybe you sell it and do a move up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, I feel society in general, man. I mean, everything's at our fingertips, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
you know, what do you
yeah.
need? I need it now. I mean, gosh, I ordered a new briefcase, and um, it's not coming until Sunday, and I ordered it like 4 days ago from Kohl's, right?
Yeah,
And I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
gosh, man, I'm going crazy. I'm like, where's my briefcase? You know?
Yeah, right, right,
And
right.
then I did the same thing. I ordered something from Walmart, and it was back. It came to me in 2 hours. You know?
Yeah, yeah, right.
I mean, we're kind of spoiled as a society. That just, I mean, I've saved you save so much time, um, and really time's probably the ultimate resource.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, that's the ultimate resource.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm getting off track a little bit. But
yeah.
anyway,
Well, hey, before we wrap up, let's talk a little bit about about down payment assistance.
yeah,
What are you seeing out there
absolutely.
that
You know,
how
so
people are using that to win?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't used it much, honestly.
Okay.
A lot of my clients don't qualify for it, and that's what it is because you think free money, everybody should have access to it. That's not always the case, obviously.
Hmm.
There's some programs that are not based off of income, family size, and things like that, but a majority of them are. And um, the some of the programs, right? So like the Lake County has housing assistance for anywhere in Lake County, right? And they'll give you $5,000, up to 5,000 towards closing costs and down payment assistance. The nice thing about that one is that you don't have to pay it back, right? It's yeah, it's a gift. I mean, you're not paying it back. It has to be home, first. I believe you do have to be a first time homebuyer, but and you have to occupy the property. None of these programs really work for somebody who's an investor unless you're going to live in the property. Because Gary actually has some programs for multifamily properties if you're going to occupy them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
right,
And I would tell people that that's a great, like what you did is a great way for people to get started.
absolutely,
You get a duplex or a triplex or
yeah,
whatever, you live
sure,
in one unit, get it as an FHA, stay there, 3.5% down, stay there a year. Then you move, you always have to move up, right?
yeah, move
So,
up, yeah,
but like
yeah,
a smaller single family home, live there for a year, a little
sure.
bit bigger single family home. You could do it right, in 5 or 6 years, you might have 6 or 7 properties if you're motivated to be that kind of a, person and get the, get income from real estate that way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. My nephew, he's kind of followed my path a little bit. Not so much where he's holding the properties. The younger generation doesn't necessarily want to work outside. They don't want to mow their lawn. They respect their time, especially on weekends and free time and things like that, right? So, so he bought a townhouse and needed a little bit of work, put like 20 into it, ended up selling it, for a substantial gain. Like he put like 60
Yeah.
grand in his pocket, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then I found an undervalued condo in Munster for him. He overspent on the improvements on this one, but I got it for him, about 10% under comps, right? So he ended
Yeah.
up paying right
Nice.
around 200 for it. Yeah, he paid about 200 for it. I told him, I said, I set a budget for him. I said, you got 25,000 to play with. And he's like, 25? He's like, no, it's going to cost me 30, 35. And I'm like, no, you got to skimp someplace. And I don't mean skimp, but you have to just reel in those costs a little bit. Don't put an $8 a square foot flooring down, put
Yeah.
$4 down, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Go with a grade two granite as opposed to grade five. And he did not listen to me as far as that goes. So he ended up putting like 40 into it, right? No, don't get me wrong. It's beautiful, right? I mean, this is a luxury condo now, and it's fantastic. It's an elevator building. He can walk to the train station, the new train station that opened up on Ridge. He's right off Manor. Beautiful condo. It's like 1,500 square feet. He's single in his 30s. He's like, it's probably worth 350 now, right? And I'm like, it doesn't work quite like that,
Yeah.
I mean, real estate it can always be a good investment, but it can also be a bad investment if you kind of get carried away, right? I mean, you have to know
Right,
what your
right.
budget
Like,
is.
like you're saying, you can't over improve the house for, what you're dealing with,
No
because
doubt,
you see that
So
especially like, there's a particular house that I know of that it just won't appraise for the purchase price. I'm sure that it's worth it. I mean, per se, but
right,
like,
right,
there's nothing in, the area that it's in. There's nothing like it, and so
yeah,
like, unless someone's going to come and pay cash,
yep,
there are no
yeah.
comps,
There's
kind of
going
a
to be
thing,
hurdles. Yeah,
So
there's definitely going to be hurdles.
yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
as far as that, so he'll probably, I mean, he may never leave from there. It's not a rentable condo, so he'll have to dispose of it if he wants to,
yeah,
move on to
yeah.
the next type of thing. But yeah, generally speaking, that is, and I told him, I'm like, hey man, get into a 2 unit, get into a 3 unit, get into a four
Yeah,
unit. And he's
yeah,
like, they're so expensive, and I'm like, they're expensive, but if you pay 200,000 for a single condo, and if a 4 unit is 500,000,
right.
it makes sense, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's a fair way to go about building some wealth.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, Bill, I can tell why you're such a great realtor and you're a wealth of information. How can people get a hold of you?
Dennis, this has been absolutely a blast, right? I've had so much fun. I didn't even know. Seriously, this is actually a lot of fun. So thank you for inviting me.
Yeah,
Um,
and we will for
so
sure do it again too, because
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
that we
for
didn't
sure.
talk
Yep,
about too.
yep. My phone number 219-680-9037. That's 219-680-9037. That's call, text. You can email me at bill@bvgrealty.com. Um, Find me on Facebook, Billy Vossos.
Love it.
The BB Greek on Instagram, and Bill Vossos on LinkedIn.
All right. I love it. Well, thank you, my friend. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Dennis.